A love beyond wealth. Alina was born into a world of luxury. As the only daughter of a powerful businessman, she had everything money could buy: designer clothes, lavish vacations, and a grand mansion that overlooked the city. But despite her privileged life, she felt an emptiness that wealth could not fill. Her parents had planned her future meticulously. They wanted her to marry a wealthy businessman's son, ensuring their family's prosperity remained untouched. However, fate had different plans. One evening, while volunteering at a local community center, Alina met Arman, a hard-working yet financially struggling young man. He worked multiple jobs to support his ailing mother and younger siblings. Though he had little in terms of material wealth, he possessed a heart full of kindness, determination, and dreams. Unlike the arrogant suitors her parents had introduced her to, Arman spoke with sincerity and treated her as an equal, not as a rich girl to impress. As they spent more time together, Alina found herself drawn to Arman's simplicity, his passion for life, and his unwavering optimism. He never complained about his hardships. Instead, he worked tirelessly to overcome them. For the first time, she experienced a love that had nothing to do with status or wealth, just pure, genuine connection. However, their love faced the ultimate test when Alina's parents discovered their relationship. Furious and humiliated, they forbade her from seeing Arman. "Love won't feed you," her father warned. "A poor man can never give you the life you deserve." But Alina refused to be bound by societal expectations. Against her family's wishes, she chose love over money. She left behind the comforts of her luxurious life and married Arman in a small, heartfelt ceremony attended only by close friends. Their early days of marriage were not easy. They lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment, and Alina had to adjust to a life without servants or expensive luxuries. Yet, she had never felt happier. Arman's love and support made every struggle worth it. They worked side by side, him taking on extra shifts while she found a job teaching children at a local school. Over time, their hard work bore fruit. Arman's dedication led him to a breakthrough. His small startup in the tech industry took off, bringing them financial stability. But even as success found them, they never let wealth define their love. Years later, when Alina's parents saw how truly happy she was, they realized their mistake. They embraced Arman, not as the poor man they once rejected, but as the loving husband who had given their daughter a happiness money could never buy. In the end, Alina proved that true love is not measured by wealth, but by the strength of two hearts that refuse to give up on each other. Destiny had a bigger plan, and it had led her to the life she had always wanted, not one of riches, but of love, partnership, and endless possibilities. Struggles of a new life. Alina had always lived a life of privilege. As the daughter of a wealthy businessman, she was accustomed to luxury, comfort, and respect from high society. But when she chose to marry Arman, a poor but hardworking man, she turned her back on the expectations of her family and the elite world she once belonged to. Her decision came at a cost. Her parents disowned her, cutting her off financially. Friends who once admired her now whispered behind her back, mocking her choice. "She threw away a life of comfort for a man with nothing," they sneered. But Alina remained steadfast. She had chosen love over wealth, believing that happiness did not come from money, but from being with the person who truly loved her. However, reality was harsher than she had imagined. Their new life together was filled with struggles. They lived in a tiny, one-room apartment in a crowded neighborhood, far from the grandeur of her family's mansion. There were days when they could barely afford proper meals, and the stress of making ends meet weighed heavily on them. Arman worked long hours, taking on multiple jobs to support them, while Alina, who had never worked a day in her life, struggled to find employment. Every rejection letter reminded her of what she had given up. "You have no experience," employers told her. She soon realized that love alone wasn't enough to pay the bills or put food on the table. Adding to their troubles was the judgment of society. People from Alina's old world pitied her, while those in Arman's circle viewed her with suspicion. "She won't last," they murmured. Some believed she would run back to her rich parents the moment life became too difficult. Even Arman's own relatives questioned whether she truly belonged in their world. These pressures took a toll on their relationship. Fights became frequent. Arman felt guilty for not being able to give Alina the life she deserved, while Alina struggled with the loneliness of being isolated from her past. One evening, after an especially heated argument, she broke down. "Maybe my parents were right," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe I wasn't ready for this." But Arman held her close. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," he said gently. "But we have each other, and I promise I will work harder, not just for me, but for us." That night, something changed. Instead of feeling defeated, they found strength in each other. Alina refused to give up. She took on small tutoring jobs, and Arman worked tirelessly on his side business, hoping for a breakthrough. Their journey was far from over, but they were no longer just surviving. They were fighting for a future together. The world doubted them, but they had something money couldn't buy: love, resilience, and an unshakable belief that better days were ahead. The unexpected. Opportunity. Arman and Alina had faced countless struggles since their marriage. Choosing love over wealth had come at a price: poverty, societal judgment, and sleepless nights worrying about the future. Arman worked multiple jobs, while Alina took on tutoring to help make ends meet. But despite their efforts, life remained a constant uphill battle. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Arman sat on the rooftop of their tiny apartment, staring at the city lights. He had always dreamed of doing something bigger, something meaningful, but with his financial struggles, those dreams felt like a distant illusion. The next morning, while working at a local cafe as a cashier, Arman overheard two businessmen discussing a problem with their company's website. They needed someone to fix it quickly, but their regular developer was unavailable. Arman hesitated, but then spoke up. "I know a bit about coding. Maybe I can help?" The men looked at him skeptically. A cafe worker offering tech solutions? But they were desperate, so they decided to give him a chance. That night, Arman stayed up till dawn, researching, coding, and fixing the issue. By morning, he had not only solved their problem, but also optimized their website beyond their expectations. Impressed, the businessman paid him generously and even offered him freelance work. Excited, Arman rushed home to tell Alina. "This could be my chance," he said. "If I keep learning and improving, maybe I can build something of my own." With renewed determination, Arman spent every spare moment refining his skills. He took free online courses, worked on small projects, and networked with people in the tech industry. His reputation grew, and soon he started getting bigger projects. Alina stood by his side through it all, encouraging him even when he doubted himself. "You have the talent, Arman," she reminded him. "You just needed the right opportunity." Months turned into years, and Arman's side hustle became a full-fledged tech startup. What had started as a single lucky break had now transformed their lives. They moved into a better home, no longer had to worry about financial struggles, and for the first time, Arman felt like he was living his true potential. One day, Alina's father, who had once disowned her for marrying a poor man, came to visit. He had heard about Arman's success and, for the first time, looked at him not as the man who had taken away his daughter, but as someone who had built a future with her. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "You didn't take Alina away from a wealthy life. You built her one through your own hard work." Arman smiled. He had once been just a struggling cafe worker, but destiny had bigger plans. All it had taken was one unexpected opportunity and the courage to seize it. Betrayal and heartbreak. Arman and Alina had built a life together against all odds. Despite financial struggles and societal judgment, they stood by each other, proving that love was stronger than wealth. But even the deepest love is not immune to doubt, and their relationship was about to be tested like never before. As Arman's tech startup gained success, he found himself working longer hours, attending business meetings, and networking with influential people. His world, once so simple, had become filled with contracts, investors, and late-night calls. Alina, who had been his pillar of support, started feeling a growing distance between them. One evening, Alina saw a message pop up on Arman's phone from a woman named Maya, his new business associate. "Looking forward to our dinner tonight. It's always a pleasure spending time with you." A sinking feeling hit Alina's chest. Dinner? Spending time? Arman had told her he was working late, but he hadn't mentioned meeting someone. Doubts began creeping into her mind. Had success changed him? Had she lost the man she had fought so hard for? She tried to ignore it, but the messages kept coming. Friendly at first, but slowly they felt more personal, more intimate. Arman's late nights became more frequent, and Alina's insecurity grew. When she finally confronted him, he was taken aback. "Maya is just a business partner," he insisted. "Nothing more." But Alina wasn't convinced. "Then why didn't you tell me about her?" she asked, hurt evident in her voice. Arman sighed. "Because I knew you'd misunderstand." The argument that followed was their worst yet. Alina accused him of changing, of forgetting the life they had built together. Arman, exhausted and frustrated, lashed out. "I'm working hard for us, Alina, but maybe you don't trust me enough to see that." That night, Alina cried herself to sleep, feeling more alone than ever. The situation escalated when Alina ran into an old friend who had once been part of her elite social circle. "You're too good for this, Alina," her friend said. "You gave up everything for him, and now he's replacing you. Come back to where you belong." For the first time, Alina wondered if she had made a mistake. Was love really enough? But just when everything seemed to be falling apart, Arman realized what was happening. He had been so caught up in work that he had neglected the one person who had always believed in him. That night, he canceled his meetings and came home early. He found Alina sitting by the window, lost in thought. "I know I've been distant," he said softly, "but I need you to believe me when I say that no one could ever take your place." Tears welled in Alina's eyes. "Then prove it," she whispered. And he did. Arman set boundaries with Maya, prioritized time with Alina, and made sure she never felt like an outsider in his success. Their love had been tested, but they had survived. Because in the end, wealth, misunderstandings, and temptations could never break the bond they had built with love, trust, and commitment. A secret from the past. Arman and Alina had endured endless struggles since their marriage. Their love was strong, but financial hardships and societal pressure made every day a battle. Despite his hard work, Arman barely earned enough to support them, and Alina, once a wealthy heiress, had adjusted to a life of sacrifices. Then, one evening, an unexpected letter arrived. The envelope was old and worn, addressed to Arman in elegant handwriting. Confused, he opened it. "If you are reading this, it means fate has brought you back to where you belong. You may not remember me, but I have never forgotten you. Come to the address below. There is something you need to know." The letter was signed by a man named Asfar Mirza, a name Arman didn't recognize. Alina noticed the confusion on his face. "Who is he?" she asked. "I don't know," Arman admitted, "but I need to find out." The next morning, he traveled to the address in the letter, a grand but aging estate on the outskirts of the city. There, he was greeted by an elderly man, Asfar Mirza himself. "You've grown so much," Asfar said, his voice filled with emotion. "You probably don't remember me or the truth about your past." Arman listened in shock as Asfar revealed the truth. He was not just a poor man's son. His real father, Rehmat Mirza, had once been a wealthy businessman, but a tragic betrayal had torn their family apart. When Arman was just a baby, his father's business partner had deceived him, stealing everything and leaving the family penniless. Unable to fight back, Rehmat had fled with his wife and son, cutting all ties with his past. Asfar, his father's loyal friend, had spent years searching for him, but by the time he found their whereabouts, Rehmat had passed away, leaving Arman an orphan with no knowledge of his heritage. "Your father may have lost his wealth, but he never lost his honor," Asfar said, "and now justice has finally been served." Asfar handed Arman a file. Inside were legal documents stating that the stolen business empire had been returned to its rightful heir, Arman himself. Arman was speechless. He had spent his life struggling, believing he was destined to be poor. Now, in a single moment, his fate had changed. He had inherited a fortune, not by luck, but as a rightful legacy. When he returned home and told Alina, she was in tears. "You were never meant to be poor, Arman," she whispered. "Destiny had a bigger plan for you." But Arman knew wealth alone did not define him. He had built his life with his own hands, and he wasn't about to let money change him. Instead of taking revenge or flaunting his riches, he used his newfound resources to help others, just as he had once needed help. And so, the boy who had once struggled to survive became a man who thrived, not just because of an inheritance, but because of his resilience, his love for Alina, and his unbreakable spirit. The turning point. Arman and Alina had endured countless struggles since choosing love over wealth. They had fought against societal judgment, financial hardships, and even moments of doubt. Despite their unwavering love, they were barely surviving. Their small apartment was cramped, their jobs exhausting, and their dreams seemed out of reach. One evening, as they sat on their tiny balcony sharing a simple meal, Alina sighed. "Arman, how long can we keep living like this? We work so hard, but we're still stuck in the same place." Arman looked at her, his mind racing with thoughts he had been afraid to voice. He had a dream, one that had been growing in his heart for years. "What if we stop waiting for things to get better?" he said suddenly. "What if we make them better?" Alina frowned. "What do you mean?" Arman took a deep breath. "I've always wanted to start my own business. I know it's risky, but what if we take that risk? What if we build something for ourselves instead of struggling for others?" Alina hesitated. The idea of leaving behind their small sense of stability was terrifying. But deep down, she knew Arman was right. They had been playing it safe, afraid to dream big. And where had that gotten them? Nowhere. "What kind of business?" she asked, curiosity replacing her fear. Arman's face lit up. "A small tech startup. I've been working on ideas in my free time. I just never had the courage to take the leap." Alina smiled. "Then let's leap together." They made a bold decision that night, to risk everything for a better future. Arman quit his job to focus on developing his business, while Alina supported them by working extra hours as a tutor. It wasn't easy. There were days when they doubted themselves, when failure felt closer than success. They spent sleepless nights coding, designing, and strategizing, knowing that one wrong move could leave them with nothing. But they didn't give up. Months passed, and finally, their hard work paid off. Arman's startup secured its first big client, then another. Word spread, and soon investors took notice. What had started as a desperate gamble turned into a thriving business. One evening, Alina stood in their new office, a far cry from the tiny apartment where they had once struggled. She looked at Arman, pride shining in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. He took her hand, smiling. "We believed in it." Their journey had been anything but easy, but they had taken control of their destiny. The turning point in their lives wasn't luck or fate. It was their courage to take a risk, to build something from nothing, and to trust in each other. They had chosen love over money once. Now, they had both. From rags to riches, Arman and Alina had started their married life with nothing but love. She had walked away from her wealthy family to be with him, and he had promised to give her a life filled with happiness, even if not luxury. But reality had been harsh. They lived in a tiny, run-down apartment, struggled to afford basic necessities, and faced constant judgment from those who had once been part of Alina's world. Despite their hardships, they never gave up. Arman worked multiple jobs, while Alina tutored children to make ends meet. But no matter how hard they worked, their situation barely improved. There were days when they had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. Then, one fateful day, everything changed. While delivering food for one of his side jobs, Arman overheard a conversation between two businessmen at a cafe. They were discussing a problem with their company's outdated software and how they couldn't find someone reliable to fix it. Arman had always been passionate about technology. Though he had never been formally trained, he had spent countless hours learning coding and software development online. Summoning his courage, he approached them. "Excuse me," he said hesitantly. "I couldn't help but overhear. I might be able to help with your software issues." The men looked at him, doubtful. "You're a delivery guy. What do you know about software?" Arman took a deep breath. "Give me one chance. Let me prove myself. If I fail, you owe me nothing." Amused by his confidence, they agreed. That night, Arman worked tirelessly, applying every bit of knowledge he had gained over the years. By morning, he had successfully fixed their system, making it faster and more efficient. The businessmen were stunned. "How did you do this?" one of them asked. "I've been studying on my own for years," Arman admitted. "I just never got an opportunity. Until now." Impressed by his talent, they not only paid him generously, but also recommended him to others. Word spread quickly, and soon Arman was flooded with freelance work. With each successful project, his reputation grew. He saved every penny, reinvested in his skills, and eventually launched his own tech startup. Within a year, his company skyrocketed. Investors took notice, partnerships formed, and Arman went from struggling to survive to leading a multi-million-dollar business. One evening, as he and Alina stood on the balcony of their new home, a far cry from their tiny apartment, she squeezed his hand. "Can you believe how far we've come?" she whispered. Arman smiled, looking at the city skyline that now seemed within his reach. "It wasn't luck, Alina. It was all the years of struggle, the nights of hard work, and most of all, it was us, never giving up on each other." Their journey had started in poverty, but through resilience, determination, and an unwavering belief in each other, they had risen from rags to riches. Facing new challenges. Arman and Alina had fought their way from poverty to success. From struggling to pay rent to running a multi-million-dollar tech company, they had built their dream life together. Their story was one of love, perseverance, and faith in each other. But success brought its own set of challenges, ones they had never faced before. At first, everything felt perfect. They moved into a luxurious home, traveled to places they once only dreamed of, and finally had the financial security they had longed for. But soon, the pressures of wealth and high society began creeping into their lives. One evening, at a high-profile gala, Alina overheard whispers from wealthy guests. "She used to be one of us, and now look at her, acting like she belongs again." Marrying a poor man was her mistake. His success was just luck. She clenched her fists, anger rising. No matter how far they had come, some people still refused to respect them. Meanwhile, Arman faced his own struggles. With success came greed. Business rivals tried to sabotage his company, and even some of his own employees became envious, spreading rumors and demanding higher salaries. Investors pressured him to expand too quickly, warning that if he didn't grow aggressively, his success wouldn't last. But the worst challenge came from within their own circle. Alina's estranged parents, who had once disowned her for marrying Arman, suddenly reached out. Her father, who had mocked Arman's lack of wealth, now spoke highly of his business genius. "Come back to the family," he urged Alina. "We can forget the past." Alina felt torn. She had longed for their acceptance, but was it real? Or were they only interested now because Arman had money? The tension between her and Arman grew. The long hours, the business stress, and the weight of expectations created distance between them. They argued over decisions, over whom to trust, how to balance their new life, and whether success was changing them. One night, after a heated argument, Alina finally broke down. "Arman, I don't care about the money, the parties, or the status. I just want us, the way we used to be." Arman looked at her, realizing how far they had drifted from the simple love that had once been their greatest strength. He took her hands. Then we hold on to what matters. We don't let money change who we are. From that moment, they made a promise to stay grounded, to help others instead of chasing endless wealth, and to protect their love above all else. Wealth had brought new challenges, but it would never define them. They had risen together, and no amount of money or power could take away what truly mattered: their unwavering commitment to each other. A test of love and loyalty. Arman and Alina had come a long way from their humble beginnings. Their journey from poverty to wealth had been filled with struggles, sacrifices, and unwavering faith in each other. But now, standing at the peak of success, they faced a new challenge, one that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with who they had become. At first, their new life seemed perfect. Lavish parties, high-end business meetings, and invitations to exclusive circles became their routine. Arman, once a struggling entrepreneur, was now a respected businessman. Alina, who had once been shunned by her wealthy family, was now welcomed back with open arms. But with this new life came temptations, pressures, and expectations that neither of them had anticipated. One evening at an elite charity gala, Arman was approached by a group of influential investors. "You have a brilliant mind, Arman," one of them said. "But if you really want to dominate this industry, you need to stop wasting time on small projects. Focus on big deals, with big profits." Arman hesitated. His entire career had been built on innovation and helping people through technology. But the investors made it clear. Ethics didn't always make money. He had to choose between staying true to his principles or chasing even greater wealth. Meanwhile, Alina was facing her own dilemma. Her parents, who had once turned their backs on her, were now eager to bring her back into high society. "You belong with us, Alina," her mother said, not struggling with Arman's impossible dreams. "Imagine what you could have if you embraced your true place." For the first time, doubts crept into Alina's mind. Was she holding Arman back? Had they fought so hard to escape poverty, only to become trapped by their own success? The tension between them grew. Arman became consumed by business, attending meetings late into the night, while Alina felt increasingly like an outsider in her own home. The love that had once been their strength now felt distant, overshadowed by the life they had built. One night, after another silent dinner, Alina finally spoke. "Arman, is this what we wanted? To become like the people who once looked down on us?" Her words hit him like a thunderbolt. He looked around, at the luxurious home, the expensive suits, the endless stream of business calls, and realized how much they had changed. "No," he said, his voice firm. "We fought for this life, but not to lose ourselves in it." That night they made a choice, not to abandon their success, but to redefine it on their own terms. Arman refused to compromise his values for profit, even if it meant losing investors. Alina chose love over status, cutting ties with those who only valued wealth. They had been tested by poverty and survived. Now they had been tested by wealth, and they had proven that their love and loyalty were stronger than any fortune. Because in the end, true success wasn't measured by money, but by staying true to who they were and to each other. Happily ever after? The years had flown by, and Arman and Alina stood at the pinnacle of their success. Their company was thriving, their home was a symbol of their hard-earned wealth, and the world had finally acknowledged their achievements. Yet, amidst the glittering world they had built, both of them knew that something far more valuable was at stake: their love. Through all the challenges they had faced, from financial struggles to the temptations of wealth, one truth remained: they had fought for each other, and together they had defied the odds. But now, as they looked at their lives, they realized that the life they had envisioned, the one filled with success and material wealth, wasn't enough to sustain the peace they longed for. One morning, while walking through their garden, Alina turned to Arman, a soft smile on her face. "You know," she said, "I've been thinking a lot lately. We've worked so hard for everything we have now. But do you ever feel like we're missing something?" Arman paused. taking a deep breath. The weight of their success had been wearing on him too. Yes, he admitted. We've built a life full of comfort and security, but maybe we've lost sight of what we truly wanted. We wanted to be happy, together, not just rich and powerful. That was when they made their decision. Arman chose to slow down with his business, focusing on smaller, meaningful projects that aligned with his values. He stepped back from the relentless race for profit, instead using his wealth to help those in need, especially communities he had once been part of. Alina, too, decided to leave behind the glamorous social circles she had rejoined, returning to her roots, working with charity organizations and advocating for the causes that had always been close to her heart. They moved from their extravagant mansion to a quieter, more humble home on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't large, but it was cozy, peaceful, and filled with love. The garden they had once admired was now where they spent most of their time, growing vegetables and flowers together, finding joy in the simplicity of it all. Arman and Alina realized that true happiness didn't lie in wealth or status. It was in the quiet moments, in the love they shared, and in the joy of giving rather than accumulating. Their wealth had brought them comfort, but it was their love and loyalty to each other that had given them everything they truly needed. In the end, they had their happily ever after, not because they had everything, but because they had each other. They had learned that love, kindness, and humility were the true measures of success. And as they sat together on their porch, watching the sun set over their little home, they knew they had found the greatest treasure of all: peace, love, and contentment.